when you hear the phrase, there's a conspiracy within the Illuminati, you really, really know that you are deep in the weeds on a complex story that is just taking all sorts of directions, man, from all sorts of places. Welcome back to Deus Ex, where I had no idea that this game was going to go in this direction at all in any way. And it's now just like, okay, listen, there's Ambrosia and Grey Death with Majestic 12, but Majestic 12 is a subset of the Illuminati that controls UNATCO, which is a group under Majestic 12 that's working with the government, but Illuminati also has conspirators within it, and you gotta figure all this out, man. And also your brother's just like, he's there as well. Like, that's what's going on. I'm gonna take you through this bit by bit because it's so funny. And it's kind of like, okay, take a breath. Let's figure this out. But the cool thing is that I noticed yesterday, or last couple of days, while I was playing, is like a lot of the way Deus Ex plays out is actually so familiar to me. And I was like, what is the familiarity here? Is it like other spy games I'd played? Is it movies I've watched? And I was like, no, you know what this is? This is every World of Warcraft guild that has dissolved into a different guild because they didn't like the leadership. And it's a tale as old as time. It's like, there's like 5 people who are in charge of this guild. Those people suck. The rest of us are good people. We're going to leave, make our own guild without those 5 people, and then recruit 5 more. And we're going to carry on our merry way and abandon those people. Because that's how near enough every storyline plays out so far. It's like, yeah, but these guys really suck. So we're going to go over to this team, and we're going to deal with those guys. But then we've dealt with these guys, and that's what's going on. I had a few objectives, but my primary overarching mission here was to tackle Hong Kong. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room, because, good God, I feel genuinely bad for the voice actors that had to work on Deus Ex. I really do, because they're clearly not representative of the nations that they are voicing. And I would love to have been in the booth, although the audio's terrible, so I doubt they use the booth. I would love to have been there when they were given the direction to be like, we need from you like the most Chinese voice you can do. And I just picture this like totally like white guy from middle America being like, what? They're like, yeah, so we're going to go to Hong Kong and we really need a good Chinese voice. And like, I mean, I could do like a racist lampoon of a Chinese voice. And they're like, good enough, baby. Good enough. That'll do. Send it, because that's what you get all the time. But it's not just the Chinese. The amount of accents you bump into, which I think is the voice actors having fun. Essentially, like, okay, I can only do like, because I have to assume they had very few voice actors, but I haven't double checked. Like, I can't do another Chinese voice because I'm already like really down the road of super buffooning myself. How about I try Irish? And they're just like, yeah, go for it. Why not? Go for it, dude. I don't know. And they're like, okay, I'm going to do an Irish accent now. What about an Australian one? All right, let's do it. And that was the plan. So we needed to get to Hong Kong because we have to meet Tracer Tong. Tracer Tong is some scientist who was looking to figure out what the vaccine to the Grey Death was made of, the Ambrosia. And he needs a sample of it, which is why the NSF, the People's Rebellion, was sending stuff over to Hong Kong, which was weird because we're like, well, people have Grey Death in the US, and aren't they protecting the US? They want to find out what's in the Ambrosia. They need a sample of it so they can make way more and start curing everybody, because all the greedy politicians and conspirators are keeping the Ambrosia to themselves and not even telling the public there is a cure for Grey Death. That made sense, but our first stop got waylaid on our way. We had to do this little compound. I got stuck here for quite some time because it was one of the first times, and you get into a mentality playing Deus Ex is the strength of the game is how many different solutions there are to the puzzle, if you're willing to do a bit of exploration. And that's usually a case of you need to access a certain room, there's probably like 4 or 5 different ways in there. There'll be a key card, which you could probably use a bunch of multi-tools on to break through if you've got that resource. Or there's probably a guy somewhere who will tell you some information, or a data pad that will give you the straight code, or there's a vent that will lead into it. And then any combination of those things can all work together, which ends up with about 15 or 16 different possible routes that a player will take in order to solve this, depending on how they disperse through the level. But I actually ran into the issue here where there was only one solution. And I was browsing for a really long time. I'm actually surprised this made it into the game. And this could be, and everything I say could take it with a pinch of salt, of whether the revision mod, which expanded the levels in a quite large way, from what I can tell, is like they've really expanded the levels, actually led to some of these problems. Because we know it's led to certain weird camera angles during cutscenes and things like that. So it's possible it's that as well. But the only solution to this was to find a specific locker inside a barracks, like one particular locker that just had the code in it. That's it. And there was nothing that pointed you to check that locker out. The way they tried to prompt you to do it is that you can break lockers and they put some weapons nearby. But that's not strange in any sort of area of the game, is where you'll find generally just like a weapons cache or a storeroom or something like that that's got these things in it. But that's what they want you to do. And I was here for like 45 minutes. I was like, what? We've checked every nook and cranny. I found like hidden access to big mechs that were going to fight later on in the level. So you had the opportunity to like kill one of them before they actually became like a boss thing later on. I found all these kinds of things, but could not find how I got into this one blatantly obvious room. It was infuriating. I was looking everywhere for it. And it turned out to be the first time this had happened, where it's like, there's only one solution to this. So, whatever. Got that cured, and then it was time to go to Hong Kong. This place is wild, man. This whole level design is wild. It's a huge area with canals, boats, nightclubs. I think it encompasses 4 loading screens to navigate this entire area. Underground malls, outdoor markets, police stations, hotels, all kinds of things to find. With a ton of mini-stories going on. Which I really enjoy. I enjoy the mini-story because it gives some life to the world, it makes it more interesting, and ultimately you are still trying to, in theory, be a protector of the people. At least I am. I'm on the side of the rebellion at this point, like full on. The main story actually had quite a number of twists and turns, which I really liked. I'll get to that in a second. But one of the stories that really stood out for me was that we were stood near a store. And this little, like, 10-year-old boy was harassing the owner, saying she was a bad person and all this. And you're going to regret it, because there's 2 warring gangs that are going on with the Triads. And he's just harassing this lady. And she's like, will you get out of my store? So he leaves. And I was like, can I say something to this kid? Because this is clearly a story element, because they had quite extensive dialogue. And he wouldn't speak to me. He was just like, go away. You're rubbish. I'm going to tell them you're a spy, and they're going to kill you. And I was like, this little kid? And I was like, God damn it. Like, that blood rose in me. I was like, I'm going to stab this little kid. But in fact, while he was doing this, he actually walked to one of the gang compounds. And he goes to the front door, and he goes, hey, I've been and spoke to her. And I'm like, oh, this thing is carrying on. He's like, I've been and spoke to the lady, and she won't pay us money. And he's like, well, you know what to do now, don't you? And he's like, yeah, I know what to do. And he's like, right, get to it. So I tried to run back to the lady to warn her that this kid was coming back and something was going to go down. But you couldn't do that. The kid walks back into the store and just robs the lady, just steals her money from the till. And she goes, hey, you're stealing from me. And then he runs off again. I was like, what, this little, God damn it, man. My gut feeling is something's going to pay off here. He runs back to the Triads, and he goes, okay, I stole 100 credits from her. And he's like, good job. You know what to do next. And he's like, yeah, I totally know what to do next. And I'm like, oh, this is going to pop off. He goes back to the store again. And he goes, listen, I've spoken to the gangs out there. And she goes, you just stole 100 credits from me. And he goes, listen, you pay us 50 credits a day, and I will be your new doorman, and I will make sure that nobody robs from you again. But you have to pay 50 credits, otherwise we're going to break down your store. So it's a protection racket, right? For those of you who don't know what that is, you should look it up. It's a very regular thing that a lot of like organized crime people do. And so I'm like, what do we do here then? So he then like stands at the door, Like, he just takes the job. And she's like, I don't make enough money to pay you another 50 credits a day. He's like, you better pay, otherwise you're in big trouble. Then he goes and starts patrolling the area. I'm like, so I must be able to intervene here somewhere. And I couldn't do anything. This was just a story that was playing out in front of my eyes. I'm like, what is going on here? So I'm watching it. I was like, maybe I could just pepper spray the kid and see if that does something, because I don't agree with what's going on here. So I just pepper sprayed the crap out of this kid, and it doesn't matter. It just carries on playing out. I'm like, what the hell, man? This is be something like in The Witcher or in like a Skyrim or something like that, where you definitely be able to intervene and do something and make a change here, but it wouldn't let you. It was just this whole storyline and dialogue that just played out in front of my eyes. It was like a little theatrical performance that was going on, which was great. I was like, this is cool. This is awesome. But the main overriding story, wow, talk about choice. Talk about choice. I got a little lost with it when there was clearly places I was supposed to go. Like, there was a big VersaLife company, which is dealing with AI tech and nanotech. I was like, well, that's going to be involved later, but you couldn't get in. Like, all right. But then you find out after communicating with, trying to reach this Tracer Tong, you find out like, well, if you want to speak to Tracer Tong, you're going to need to do something for us, because you need to prove that you're not a maniac, or you're not somebody who's just trying to break in. Like, all right. And they go, there's a sword. This sword called the Dragon's Tooth. The Dragon's Tooth is a really advanced piece of technology, and it's been stolen or destroyed, and we need you to get revenge on it. Like, Maggie Chow, she knows all about it. Maggie Chow is in on it. You need to go and speak to Maggie, and she'll fill you in on the details. I was like, okay, cool. So I found Maggie's house. I go in, and there's Maggie. And Maggie's like, yeah, the Dragon's Tooth. The Dragon's Tooth is like a powerful symbol. It also was so powerful, this sword, that it was going to open all these doors. It was going to let us rise to power, because the Triad gangs are at war. One of the gangs stole the sword, and they destroyed the sword, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, ooh, this is pretty cool. Now, I'm going to give shout-outs here to the audience, because I didn't notice this. As I was walking around her apartment, because she's like, go here, and maybe you can recover the sword, or something like that. I'm like, all right. And her computer was there. Her maid kept following me around to keep an eye on me. And this was very clever by the devs. Is like, the maid is like, don't touch anything. Don't do it. I was like, okay, but she didn't actually stop me. She's just saying, you shouldn't be here anymore, blah, blah, blah. She's just like, she's not like interrupting me. She's just talking in the background saying, you shouldn't be here anymore. You should go. And her PC was there. So I like quick saved. I'm like, I wonder if she's going to attack me actually if I touch her PC. Because on occasion that happens, but not always. And so I clicked the PC. Sure enough, she pulled out a gun and started shooting me. So I blasted her head off with a shotgun. And I was like, am I in trouble now? I find myself in this position so often of like, am I in trouble? And nothing happened. I was like, all right. So I looked at her PC again and left it because I hacked it and there's some various emails. And then someone went, wait a minute. Her screensaver is Majestic 12, which are the bad guys. I'm like, is it? So I go back. I'm like, wait a minute. She works for Majestic. And sure enough, it's Majestic 12. Like, she works for Majestic 12. So I look at the computer floor and then it's like, there's multiple security cameras and there's somewhere with a laser grid. And I'm like, what is going on here? So we like turned the cameras off and then it said open the door. So I opened the door and sure enough, a secret door opens. And she's got a bloody lab in her house and she has the Dragon's Tooth. She's the one behind it all. And then the story then is that Majestic 12 has been manipulating the warring gangs in Hong Kong to kill each other so they can eventually come in and take over. And they've orchestrated this whole thing. I was like, this is really awesome. This is really cool. So I went out back to kill Maggie and she's disappeared. I'm like, okay. And then went about my business bringing peace to the warring gangs of Hong Kong, which I did, which was awesome. And then I got a cool sword out of it. They let me keep the Dragon's Tooth. And then I had to break into the VersaLife compound, which was the revelation that there are aliens, little gray aliens. So obviously the Grey Death is something to do with alien DNA. And what's really weird, because I found them studying them, and I found that there's like a nuclear reactor sort of control rod area down the bottom of this giant laboratory, which I had to worm my way in with some murder and guts. I can't mention it to anybody, and I feel like that's really weird. I'm like, guys, I come back, and I've collected all the information about the ambrosia and stuff like that, and I'm like, should I not be able to mention, it's like, by the way, there's legit aliens in this laboratory, like little gray aliens, like straight up from the comic books and from the like 1950s serial movies. Little gray aliens are down there. big black eyes. They've got the long limbs. They're short. The whole business. They're right there, dude. They're like, this is sort of, nobody cares. Nobody wants to know. You can't say anything. I'm like, bro, come on, man. We've got to be able to tell about these aliens, but like, nah, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're not going to bring that up yet. So I don't know whether that's going to reveal later or whether they're just supposed to be lumped in with the other mutants and stuff that they're working with. I have no idea. But then it was time. Then this is when the Illuminati came up, and I was like, the Illuminati is involved in this. I'm like, oh my god. It just, there's another there's a puppeteer behind the puppeteer behind the puppeteer behind the puppeteer every step of the way here. I'm like, okay, now we're dealing with the Illuminati, which I just can imagine my live audience loved. It's like, oh, we're full in there now, full in. You've got to go back to New York and you've got to meet somebody who's from the Illuminati. I'm like, all right, cool. We're going back to New York. New York is now a martial state where everybody's shooting me. I butchered. The streets were running red with blood by the time I was finished. But now I'm like full melee, which is awesome. Melee is just the best once you get a good weapon, and I've started investing points in it. Like, I one-clap so many people with my sword now. I'm just chopping through them. I'm like full John Rambo in the streets. I worked my way through the streets, met up with some old people, got some new information and blah, blah, blah. And then I found out, it's like, okay, this guy's going to meet you in the sewers. I'm like, all right, sweet. And I go down there, and sure enough, this guy dressed as a bum who had the poor job of coughing while talking to me to indicate he's caught the grey death. So he goes, and so I am a member of the, and like breaks into like the clearest voice ever. And he goes, I am a member of the Illuminati. But you must understand, and that's when the revelation comes of like, there are conspirators within the Illuminati that are behind the scenes puppeteering everything. And I'm like, oh my god. And the whole point is to get a side quest to save him. I'm like, okay, so we need to get some ambrosia for him to save a member of the Illuminati? Why not? He's a priority. I assume he does know stuff we want to know about, but I'm like, okay, so we're many FEMA's involved. I forgot, I didn't mention FEMA. They're using FEMA and ousting all the other people in order to take over FEMA so they can cause major accidents, so they can get into the major accidents under the guise of FEMA and control what's going on. So that's going on too. All that's happening. So I spoke with him, and it was great. He's like, look, there's a super freighter that's carrying all the stuff. You need to go there and sink it. You need to destroy this. You need to scuttle it. They kept using the word scuttle. You got to be scuttlers. You got to scuttle the boat. I was like, all right, cool. And then I bumped into some Marines, and the Marines were like, yeah, FEMA's acting like complete weirdos. I know a guy called Vinny, and Vinny's a bro, and Vinny's going to let people know that you're not a jerk and let you into the military compound. I should point out at this point, I had spec'd into security so I could now control automated turrets and make them attack enemies, which I thought was great because turrets are everywhere. So I was like, oh, cool. That'll clear out a lot of the levels for me. No. In fact, what that did, when I finally got to be able to do it, because now there's just no turrets anywhere, very similar to RoboCop. It's like, oh, you've advanced to this level? Well, we're also going to remove the ability for you to use it. I'm like, okay, fine. I turned on one turret. I was like, yeah, now I've got a turret. And I tried to kite some enemies back to it so the turret would kill them all. And instead, it killed my friends, the Marines. So I'm like, okay, all I've done is butcher people who were on my side. But I got to the Super Freighter, and that's where I'm up to right now. I think we're approaching the end of Deus Ex. In fact, I'm planning to finish it tomorrow because I want to get back to Valheim on Wednesday. That's my plan, is to get back into Valheim. I've spoke to OK Mage, and she is super hyped to get back to scuttling ourselves across the swamp and figuring out what's going on and return to New Scuff Town. So I know many of you have been waiting for more Valheim, so it will be coming probably Wednesday. But good God, I don't know where it goes from here. I was like, how many layers are there? I assume we're going to Area 51. Area 51 keeps getting brought up. I've seen little grey aliens. We're definitely going to Area 51. So I guess that's what's happening today. Stay tuned, because at this point I'm like, all right, who's the good guy? Is there a good guy? Is that the point? I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. So I'll see you then. Bye, guys.